Well, I feel like we all saw this coming, but just didn't want to believe it would happen. And that is that earlier today, series' producer of The Legend of Zelda, Eiji Aonuma, came on video and revealed his new haircut. I mean, damn man, he's looking fresh as fuck. Okay, that's not the news I'm actually here to share today, but I have to point it out. He's looking fresh. The real news is rather unfortunate, and that is that Breath of the Wild sequel is being delayed until next year of spring 2023. So gone is the dream of Breath of the Wild 2 in 2022. Yeah, that's dead because literally Nintendo has confirmed that the game is coming out next year. And that was no surprise because we haven't even received a title for the game yet, and we only have had 2 small minute-long teaser trailers of the game so far that don't really showcase much on what the sequel is really about. All we really know is that the game is taking place in Hyrule as Breath of the Wild did, but also in the sky as the world has been far more expanded. Along with that, we actually received a small new clip that isn't in the previous 2 teaser trailers that showcases Link in a much better view. I'm gonna go ahead and get into those first because I'm sure a lot of you guys already know of the 2 previous teaser trailers, so let's just look at the new information that we finally received, even if it's not much. Now the first new clip we see is of Link interacting with some weird golden light that seems to be floating above a stone-like table. And in the shot we see a much better view of Link's right arm, the arm that seems to have been either possessed by some ancient hero or some Sheikah magic, or just Link lost his arm and obtained some weird mechanical one. We're not entirely sure on what exactly the arm is in relation to, but what you can see on it as well is a symbol where the Triforce of Courage would normally be, but instead it's some weird golden looking Monado symbol that looks like some text, but you can't actually make out exactly what it is. It does sort of remind me of the squiggly green text we see in the beginning of the first teaser trailers, but with it being gold and not too squiggly, just an actual, set piece of text, we can't really connect the 2, but still it's interesting to know, as I'm sure this has some relation to do with the Triforce of Courage or the power that's found within the arm that has been given to Link. We also then see Link take out the Master Sword in front of this golden light, as his hands also glowing a similar golden light, but then we get a better view at the Master Sword, and yeah, the Master Sword looks more than broken, it looks roasted. I mean, what happened to the Master Sword? It was completely chewed up. Like what we saw in Breath of the Wild with it being a rusted Master Sword, yeah, it was not nearly as bad of a condition as we now see it in. Though it does seem like Link is attempting to restore the power within the Master Sword with this golden light and the golden light from his hand. Though, yeah, I have no idea how the Master Sword got into the state, and I'm not looking forward to that, as the Master Sword breaking was a big thing that I didn't like within Breath of the Wild, and now it looks like it's going to be a major problem within this game. Maybe the goal will be to restore it completely, as, yeah, I don't know what happened, but it looks like someone chewed the Master Sword and spit it out. Also, before I forget, finally we have a better view of Link in this new outfit and new haircut, and yes, it's actually Link. While I feel like it's obvious pointing that out, I feel like there were so many people speculating that for some reason this wasn't Link and we were playing as another character or just another version of him. But clearly this is Breath of the Wild's hero. This is Link from Breath of the Wild with just a new look in clothing, haircut, and obviously the new arm. Sadly, that little clip with those 2 shots are pretty much the only 2 clips we've gotten that is new within this update. And while the game is set to now be released next year, it doesn't mean we're not going to be getting any new information regarding the game this year, though it doesn't seem like Nintendo has much to share now, as hopefully we'll be getting tons more information regarding the game at this year's E3. Though I'm not putting my hopes too high on getting much information at E3, as before this update, I assumed that E3 would have been the big reveal for Breath of the Wild 2. With the title drop, with the release date, with a bunch of gameplay, maybe even a demo playable, even at the Nintendo Treehouse, at least, for us to see what the game is about. But now it looks like we might not be getting any of that at E3, as the game will be delayed for another year. So we're probably going to get something regarding the game, but not much, and hopefully we'll be getting little by little updates throughout the year as it ends, leading to 2023. Regardless, while I am a bit upset that it has been delayed, it's just because I have to wait longer. I totally understand why Nintendo is doing this. This is something not new to them, as with Breath of the Wild, the original game, they also announced it coming out in 2015 to 2016, and then later coming out in 2017. So the game was delayed a lot longer than they had anticipated, even with trailers letting you know that the game was coming out soon. It never did. And that is, I guess, because Nintendo is just biting off more than they can chew. But luckily, with these delays, they do deliver. You can't deny that. And I want Breath of the Wild sequel to be exactly that. If we have to wait another year for the game to be a masterpiece like its prequel, then it's well worth the wait. And in this little update, Aonuma mentions how the team is trying to include new encounters and new gameplay elements for the sequel, which is something to really look forward to, as Breath of the Wild revolutionized how you solve puzzles within the Zelda series, giving you all the items you need from the very beginning, and then just letting you solve it the way you want to. And if the sequel does something similar with new abilities and new puzzles to take on, I mean, that is something that I really want to see. Breath of the Wild is a game that has so much replay value because of that, as you can go into a shrine and solve it completely different than you did in your last playthrough. And when you really look at that, it starts to make sense in why Nintendo took so long to make this game. They really wanted you to feel like you had freedom. It's something you don't get in many games, especially ones that require you to solve puzzles, which is rare to see games do that, you know, in a way that doesn't seem unfair or, you know, a very strict way of following things. Like, Nintendo kind of opened up the bubble when it came to that in Breath of the Wild, and it's only going to expand on that in the sequel. So yeah, if Breath of the Wild 2 has to wait another year, it's worth it. I mean, Nintendo shows with how these games are masterpieces. At the end of the day, no one wants a half-assed game, and if the game has to be delayed, then let it be. That is the best way to look at it, and I'm sure it's gonna be worth it. Like, again, if you felt the way I felt like when I first played Breath of the Wild, then being able to experience that same experience again is gonna be worth the wait. I'm not gonna rush that, because the way I felt when I first played Breath of the Wild was like a kid again. It was surreal. I could not even fathom the world I was exploring, and I really want to be able to experience that feeling again in the sequel. But sadly, until then, we're gonna be in a drought until Nintendo releases any new information regarding the game. So we're just gonna have to sit and speculate on what we already have until then. So please let me know what you guys think of the two little scenes we've seen within this update, it being of Link's hand and the marking that's on it, as well as the chewed up, beat up Master Sword and what could be behind that. I would love to know your guys' opinions, and maybe I can make a video in the future speculating all the information we do have, or at least what we can assume of what little we are able to work with. And plus, this year has had a lot of amazing games coming out. It kind of felt insane that Nintendo was releasing so many first-party titles along with Breath of the Wild sequel on top of it. It didn't really feel like it was gonna happen, and sadly it didn't. Again, while I'm sad, I completely understand why. And this will give me a chance to fully focus on Xenoblade Chronicles 3 when it comes out, so there's that to look forward to, as I'm sure Monolith Soft, who are probably also working on Breath of the Wild sequel, have a lot on their plate with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And if for some reason you're upset, just look at it as in the end you're going to be getting a better game, and on top of it, it will give you a chance to kind of play through the backlog of games that maybe you haven't gotten a chance to, because I'm sure it's hard for anyone to keep up with the amount of games being released as of recent. For me, and I'm sure a lot of people, at least there are games that you'll be able to really focus on without worrying about if Breath of the Wild 2 will clash in between that and, take away your time from a specific game. And Elden Ring is a good example, as that game was going to be in competition with Breath of the Wild for Game of the Year, and now we don't have to worry about that, as Elden Ring will most likely win Game of the Year this year, and I can assure you Breath of the Wild sequel will win next year. Interestingly though, Breath of the Wild sequel didn't win the most anticipated game of the year last year, as it was Elden Ring. And funny enough, Elden Ring actually came out, and Breath of the Wild sequel didn't. So maybe fans knew it wasn't coming out. I mean, not having a title or an actual confirmed release date must have also had a lot of fans not be as anticipated for the game, as we never really knew when it was gonna come out. Hell, even this new release date we now have of spring 2023 feels more real and close than, 2022, because that's all we knew. It was just the year 2022, but it was no given time. Now that we actually know it's coming out in spring, it actually feels like it might happen, because it's not just a random date, but hopefully we get that title as well. And hopefully it's this year and we don't have to wait until next year. Because it is ridiculous how Nintendo hasn't given us a title for the sequel yet. But I've pretty much come out of the dead to make this update video for you guys. And I'm sad that it's nothing but unfortunate news. But it is what it is, I guess. So please let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. And maybe what game is going to hold you off until the sequel. For me, I have a lot of content regarding Breath of the Wild 2 and this new little information we got, but along with that, other games that will be able to fill in the void until the sequel comes out. So do look forward to those videos when they do come out. Anyways, that about does it for this video. Be sure to leave a like and let me know again in the comments below. As always, I've been ZM, and I'll see you all in the next one.